People say the world is a dark and scary place, but you have no idea just how dark it really is. We are about to take a peek into the abyss. Welcome to the darkest depths. Bart and Krista Halderson were living a quiet life in their beautiful home, and were also the proud parents of two sons, 24-year-old Mitchell, who worked in tech and was engaged to be married, and 23-year-old Chandler, who was attending college for an IT degree and preparing for a job that he had lined up at SpaceX. On July 2nd, 2022, Krista didn't show up for work, and when her co-worker tried to get a hold of her, there was no response. When the co-worker went to the Halderson home, they were met by their son Chandler, who told them that his parents had gone to the family cabin for the 4th of July weekend. But when Bart and Krista never returned home from the cabin after the holiday weekend, and also weren't answering calls or text messages, friends urged Chandler to call the police for help, which he did on July 7th, when he filed a missing person report for his parents. He told the police that his parents were picked up and driven to the cabin by a couple that he didn't know. As detectives began investigating Bart and Krista's mysterious disappearance, Chandler Halderson began knocking on neighbors' doors, asking if they had seen or heard from his mom and dad. On July 8th, the Haldersons' oldest son Mitchell drove up to the family cabin and discovered something quite peculiar. It was abundantly clear that no one had been inside the cabin for a long time, and there were no signs at all of Bart and Krista Halderson. Detectives interviewed friends and neighbors and started to suspect that Chandler's story wasn't adding up, so they brought him in for questioning. During the 2-hour interview, Chandler insisted that his parents had gone to the cabin for a plumbing emergency, even describing to them how he had helped pack the tools for the repairs. And then, as if by fate, something happened during the interview that changed the whole scope of the investigation. As detectives were talking to Chandler, they received a tip from a farm owner who said they had seen Chandler walking along the wood line of her property a few days before he had reported his parents missing. When deputies searched the area, they found what they were looking for: the dismembered torso of Bart Halderson. When confronted with this information, Chandler immediately asked for a lawyer, and police arrested him for providing false information about a missing person, and then with murder once his father's torso was identified. He was also charged with dismembering and hiding a body. But where was Krista? As authorities continued to search for her, not knowing if she was dead or alive, investigators also turned to Chandler's girlfriend, who gave them permission to download social media data from her phone as well. She would keep tabs on Chandler through Snapchat, and on July 3rd she used the app to track his location in real time to a spot near the Wisconsin River. It was so peculiar to her, she took a screenshot of it on her phone and saved it to later confront him. When the detectives searched the Snapchat location by the river, they made another gruesome discovery: the dismembered remains of Krista Halderson. Her youngest son had taken her to his favorite childhood swimming hole, where he disposed of her remains like garbage. It turned out that Chandler had been lying to his parents for quite some time. He had actually flunked out of the college they enrolled him in, and had been sending them fake emails to appear that he was still in school, and he had never been preparing for the job at SpaceX. That was all a lie. When Bart called the college and found out that his son was no longer a student at their school, he asked for a meeting with school officials. He would be shot to death by Chandler before that meeting ever happened. A coroner wasn't able to determine the cause of death for Krista. At Chandler Halderson's trial, prosecutors presented evidence that Chandler had bought a tarp and 20 pounds of ice, and matched the tarp to the one found in the garbage near his father's remains. They also found tools hidden in an oil drum near the scene where Bart's remains were found, which had blood on them that matched both Bart and Krista's DNA. And lastly, they showed the jury evidence from the Halderson home's family fireplace, which contained some horrific clues. It seemed that before Chandler had cut his parents to pieces with a handsaw and dumped their parts in various places around the neighborhood, he had first tried to burn them to ashes in the fireplace, where over 200 human bone fragments were found. It took a jury only 2 hours to convict Chandler Halderson on all charges related to the death of his parents, Bart and Krista, and he is currently serving out his life sentence with no possibility of parole.
Thank you for watching Darkest Depths. Follow on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for the absolute worst that humanity has to offer in true crime and horror. Merchandise available through teespring.com. Episode requests made through darkestdepthstruecrime@gmail.com.